you so much for that report. Well, joining me tonight in the WGN studio to talk more about this is Professor Robert Shapiro from St. Xavier University. Professor, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
You know, you hear how the Republicans in Congress say they want to do these things, but it seems like then it's the latest tweet from President Trump.
Well, he seems to be his own worst enemy in many ways. I mean, there are all these real legislative initiatives, big legislative initiatives that President Trump says that he wants to pursue, and then just when one of them gets off the ground, attracts a little bit of news, he tweets something about something else that diverts everybody's attention to that and the impact that his words have on policy and the law.
Well, and we know what an unconventional presidency this is. But when you go back to even the NATO conference, where he does not express vocal support for Article 5, the one in, all in kind of, that's the basis of NATO, and then people in the White House say, well, it was a conference on Article 5. Why did he need to say it?
Well, part of the problem is that that so much of what he does seems to be done by instinct without a lot of planning, and therefore they have to make up or give us reasons why it is that he left something out or whatever. These are not things that are very, very carefully tailored to the specific event in question. Occasionally they are, but most of the time the president has an idea, he wants to get it out there. You're right, it's very unconventional, and I think in some ways the presidency is never going to be the same again.
And I worry about that too, because we have to view things through a different prism. I mean, there is something to be said for a bit of predictability and stagecraft in politics, but this is something totally new.
It's something totally new, and the reason I think it'll continue is that there is a certain effectiveness to this with respect to his own political base. President Trump has said that he wants to be able to reach out to those people who are his supporters and who really are in favor of his approach to things, and he goes right over the heads of everybody, the news media, of Congress, and whatever, and speaks directly to them. And I think that other politicians are going to find this effective in the future as well.
But at the same time, you have White House advisors like Kellyanne Conway go on the Today Show and say, don't pay so much attention to the tweets. It's his words that matter.
Well, the tweets are words, and these words do matter. And they're going to, for example, in the case of the case that's now going to the Supreme Court, these words could have a big impact on the outcome of that case, because President Trump has basically acknowledged things that his lawyers have said aren't the case. And so now you have a conflict between what he said in his own tweets as president and what the Supreme Court is being presented as part of the record. And this conflict is really going to make people scratch their heads.
Well,
and
yet we see these White House press briefings, and it's, well, is it a travel ban? No, it's not a travel ban. Then it's the president tweeting, well, I'm not politically correct. It's a travel ban. It's what I say it is.
Right. Well, that's what he does. And I mean, there's a certain character to it where you say, well, okay, at least he's acknowledging what it is, what it really is. This is not going to do him a lot of good in the legal system itself. And it sometimes has a big impact on world affairs as well, such as in the tweets with respect to Qatar and the controversy with Saudi Arabia. These words make a difference.
I want to go to the issue of some of these policy goals of the Republicans. Most specifically, I'm curious about the issue of infrastructure, and this is something that he had talked about. And I think if there's one thing in a polarized Washington that there's common ground on, it's infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the airports. It's quite frankly what we used to call pork,
right.
Pork barrel projects. And yet, even now with the plans he's kind of rolling out, he was talking about $1 trillion investment. Well, no, it's only $200 billion and trying to attract private investment as part of this.
The big problem is money, of course. I mean, the question is whether there's the money to do it. Everybody supports this kind of endeavor, and there's no question that our infrastructure really needs real serious help and real programs to make it better. And the question is money, and this has to be thought through in a way in which you're going to be able to build a coalition for a big program of this sort and figure out where the various funding sources come from. And when you divert attention by tweeting about other matters and whatever, you lose the momentum that you are trying to develop within Congress, within the country. And that's not a good thing for this particular type of proposal, because you need to bring together a coalition of people who agree on the funding source and agree what should be done.
And of course, when you talk about funding sources, you're looking most typically about a gasoline tax, and that has not been altered in years. You're seeing better mileage from automobiles. You're seeing electric cars that don't even contribute to, to the highway construction fund.
Right. Well, that fund used to supply all the funds for our road building and the like. Now it can't even come close. So this is going to tie into the tax proposals that are being considered, both for income tax and other forms of tax, and all of that has to be carefully integrated. Now, I believe there are some of the president's advisors that are sitting there thinking about these particular issues and how they all interrelate and how the economy is going to respond and what kinds of tax revenues we will have. The old issue of supply side economics. If you stimulate the economy, you'll have more revenue. But again, you need to build a kind of momentum for this. And I have the sense that the president often undermines his own ability to build that coalition.
Well, it's political momentum in Washington, plus you need popular momentum.
Yeah, these tweets do appeal, I think, to his base, but he needs to go beyond his base if he's going to be successful with this, because even under the best circumstances, his base isn't more than 40 or 45% of the country. That's probably generous. And you need the rest of the country as well to get behind it, and you need their representatives in Congress to get behind it.
Professor Robert Shapiro from St. Xavier University, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Up next, J.B. Pritzker gets the